Paranormal King Radio Network at ParanormalKing.com.
Welcome to the Paranormal News Insider for February 16th, 2021. And this is officially episode number 467. And this is your host, as always, Dr. Brian D. Parsons. And we are live. Yes, we're back here on the Paranormal King Radio Network at ParanormalKing.com. And where have I been? I don't know. I've missed a few weeks here and there. It's been a slow year for paranormal news, and I just was kind of busy. Last week, I kind of tinkered with doing a show, but we went out, finally was able to get a dog. So we had to drive down to Columbus, Ohio, and pick up our brand new addition to our family. So wasn't able to get home in time to do a show. Granted, I didn't really have a whole lot of material for a show. It's been a really weird year as far as all sorts of paranormal news. You'd think that people being locked down, bored out of their minds, going on the second year now, that there would be a little bit more people would pay attention to strange things and would be, I don't know, seeing stuff. But we have a few stories that I think kind of tie into the boredom of such things. I think we saw a little bit last year as well, and I think a couple stories kind of made me chuckle thinking about that people are just desperate for anything different, weird, strange, or all the above. And we got news all over the place. Seems like a lot of UFO stuff this week, which I know you guys like, you really enjoy. And don't worry, there are no Loch Ness Monster stories this week. And hopefully, this is kind of a test run. My wife and I were talking about how the dog is going to react to me talking in a room here in my little studio. So far, no scratching. Nope, I don't hear anything. So we'll see how that plays out. We had a dog before that didn't really bother me, so I don't think anything will happen. But if we do, then we get a guest. We haven't had a guest on the show in a long time, so maybe. We'll see. We have a lot of UFO stuff tonight from all over the place, most of it here in the United States. I'll also talk about Elon Musk. He's creating a lot of problems, I think. He's pushing boundaries, creating new thoughts, and stretching the imagination of what we thought or what we think we could do or should do. And but at the same time, he's causing a lot of problems. So we'll talk about him tonight. I don't have any new updates as far as events are concerned this week. The events tab there at the top of the paranewsinsider.com website, home of the Paranormal News Insider. Yes, paranewsinsider.com, because Paranormal News Insider, just too long for a website, I think. So I try to chop it down a little bit. But you can find it pretty easy. Events tab. Right there, right next to the home link. You should be able to see that. Got to update that. The Dead of Winter Festival is over. And we got, Haunted Savannah Paracon coming up February 26th through the 28th. And that's about it here. Nothing UFO related till April, as well as cryptozoology until April, at least on my calendar. I don't know. I know there's a lot of updates. There's a lot of events that are kind of circling. They're wondering what's going to happen. Are we going to be back to normal? And I said that with air quotes, which you can't see on the radio. I don't think we're going to be back to normal anytime soon, but I do believe that some of these events are going to go on, but they're going to have to go on with limited guests. And I don't know why we're not seeing more online things like Zoom type things. You would have thought that we would have moved that direction, knowing that the second year of this stuff is going on. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully events do do occur this year. I think it's good to get out there and listen to people and exchange thoughts and information and ideas and be able to get your book signed. I think that's important too. I think that's fun. So we'll keep an eye out and an ear out for all that information. And of course, if you have any information about any event, you can let me know. You can find me on Twitter, Paranews at Paranews Insider. Obviously, Facebook, and you can email me. If people still email each other, I don't think so. But if you do, you're old school like me, you can email me at insider@paranewsinsider.com, and I'll try to respond within 24 hours. That's my goal, usually. I do have the events page there. I don't think it's deleted. It's still there. It's a lot of work, but I keep it going as much as I can. I haven't updated it since the end of January. It says January 25th. So yeah, I got to get in there and tinker around a little bit. I'm just always afraid to start looking at these things, see how many are canceled. Last year was just an absolute nightmare with cancellations. Obviously, everybody thought that this whole COVID thing, or coronavirus as we called it last year, would just blow over. It'd be fine. We're not going to have to wear masks and all that stuff. That's silly. We're just going to keep doing what we do and never have to change. Well, little did we know that wasn't the case. What else is going on? So I got a lot of white stuff in my driveway, and I'm sure a lot of you out there were affected by the massive snowstorm that crossed through the United States the last few days. I know down south, I've been down to Galveston before, and I'll tell you, to see pictures, or actually a video of Galveston right there at the seawall covered in snow is just crazy. I always laugh when places down south get like a little bit of snow or ice, the whole entire city shuts down because they don't have the services to take care of it. But some pretty serious weather down there, and yeah, and it's tricky for them to take care of it. And unfortunately, they're not used to it. I know up here in Ohio, it snows pretty much 10 months out of the year, it seems like, and people still have a hard time adjusting to that. The first few snowfalls, you see a lot of cars spinning out and wrecked on the side of the road from driving crazy through the snow. And it usually levels out after a while, and we just have to drive a little slower. Instead of 85, we drive about 65, and we get through the snow a little bit easier. We didn't get hit hard where I'm at. Too bad, but I've heard a lot of stories of people getting many, many feet of snow all over the place. So be careful out there. There is more weather coming, more weather on the way. I hear some crazy ice storms from down south, and I know Texas got hit very, very hard. Oklahoma, Arkansas got hit pretty bad. Louisiana, the whole South pretty much got hammered with ice and or snow or everything. We're used to it here in Ohio. Northeast is, 2 feet of snow is nothing. When I was a kid, we had a lot more snow, a lot more frequently than what we do nowadays. But anyway, yeah, be careful. And also, yeah, I guess it was Valentine's Day, President's Day yesterday. Lots of holidays. So hopefully you enjoyed your Valentine's Day. Got lots of chocolate and, Anyway, we're going to move to cryptid news for this week. And we're just going to start out with finding Bigfoot. Yeah, I never thought we'd talk about finding Bigfoot. After 100 episodes, that show came to a close. What was it, 2 years ago? Something like that. And they never did find it. Still looking. They couldn't find it after 100 episodes. But the cast of Finding Bigfoot, well, they're back. Yes, they're back. Well, kind of back. At least back for a 2-hour special. Finding Bigfoot, the search continues. So maybe in this, a 2-hour special, they can find it. So it made its debut last week, and the Finding Bigfoot crew has now made the leap from regular cable television. How boring is that? People still watch cable TV? That is so 1999. Um, yeah, the new trend is streaming services. I should have said 2019. Um, yeah, streaming services. It's big now. Everything is something plus, right? And they're on Discovery Plus. There's like Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, I don't know, Plus, somebody Plus. Now, I'm gonna have to do Paranormal News Insider Plus, I guess. Do something different. I don't know. Um, and there's a few other paranormal shows that are going through that are going to be going to the streaming stuff. And just like a few other paranormal shows, I know we talked about, was it Zach Bagans' Ghost Adventures? They used the COVID lockdown as a storyline, saying that COVID lockdowns have created an uptick in sightings. I don't know how that's we can blame that. I get nature kind of healing a little bit. I get the air quality getting better. I get people not getting as sick because we're careful, but ghosts getting more frantic or antic. I don't know. I don't think that really relates to it. But hey, anything you can do to sell cars, because that's what we're trying to do with these ghost shows. We're trying to sell commercial slots. That's what all it comes down to. We don't care about the content of the show. That's just secondary. Selling commercial slots, that's number one. We get people to tune in and hold them captive for 48 minutes on the show, or at least 60 minutes for all the commercials. That's great. That's all we care about. So the press release about the show states, quote, "While the natural world is bursting with truths to be uncovered and discoveries to be made, there is one legend that sparks excitement and passion unlike no other. Bigfoot. Animal Planet's intrepid Finding Bigfoot team returns together for the first time in 3 years to travel to hotspots of the U.S. to once and for all prove the elusive Bigfoot exists. Finding Bigfoot, the search continues, streams on Discovery Plus, the definitive nonfiction real-life subscription streaming service, Monday, February 8th. And they spelled February wrong. In addition to streaming Finding Bigfoot, the search continues on Discovery Plus. Viewers can join the conversation on social media by using hashtag Finding Bigfoot. Yeah, I say hashtag we ain't found him yet. And following Discovery Plus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more updates. Bigfoot sightings over the past year as the U.S. has been in lockdown due to COVID-19 has greatly increased. I don't know where they got that from again. These multiple sightings, coupled with advanced technologies, have convinced the original Finding Bigfoot team, led by Bigfoot Field Research Organization President Matt Moneymaker, expert field caller James Bobo Fay, evidence analyst Cliff Barrickman, and field biologist Renee Holland, to get back on the road and into the woods. Yeah, it wasn't the big paycheck, by the way, for their biggest investigations to date with the best evidence the team has ever had. In Finding Bigfoot, the search continues. Incredible reports from areas in Ohio and West Virginia proved to be too compelling for investigators to ignore. Among other stories in this 2-hour special, the reunited Finding Bigfoot team travels to a property in southeast Ohio that has been under surveillance for 5 years by the BFRO investigator Bay Mills. The evidence has been building after the homeowner and his family has had several mysterious encounters over the years. Advancement in technology gives the team evidence that includes clean audio of Bigfoot vocalizations, detailed footprint casts with skin ridge details, and quality pictures by advanced cameras. Yes, a lot has changed in 3 years, apparently. As the team closes in on this active hotspot, they enlist the help of some highly specialized thermal vision drone pilots to get their own Bigfoot footage. As legend meets advanced technology to analyze compelling Bigfoot evidence, and with new gadgetry at their disposal, with Matt, Bobo, Cliff, and Renee finally proved to the world once and for all that these incredible creatures really do exist? Well, I think the answer, really, if I had to answer it, is no. No. Because if they would have found anything during this filming, which took place months ago, I think we would have heard about it. It would have been front page news. I think we would have. We would have heard about it pretty much. You're not going to keep that under wraps. I'm sure there's some compelling stuff. I haven't watched it yet. I missed it last week. I forgot about it and haven't had time to get back on there to try to see it. No, actually, no. I don't have Discovery Plus, so trying to figure out how I'm going to watch it. I've read a little bit about it, but I do want to watch it. Kind of curious about it, but I'm going to spend an extra cash. There's a whole bunch of other Plus channels I'd like to watch. Yeah, for more than 2 hour special. But they are using this show to lure people like me and you, maybe you, I don't know. Obviously, the Finding Bigfoot show is really one of the most popular shows for the Discovery Network. Granted, due to COVID and a lot of other details, obviously traveling shows really hit the sidelines with COVID. But just the budget really wasn't there for that show. I think we talked about this. There's just a lot of things that led to the show being shelved, even though at its height, it was one of the most popular shows. And now they're using it to lure people to their streaming service. Yes, you're going to have to pay extra. I found that out. I don't know why I thought I could watch it. But yeah, you're going to have to pay extra to watch the Bigfoot gang. The trend is continuing away from cable and towards separate streaming services. I'm sure we're going to see some ghost stuff make its way on some new streaming services to try to lure people to them. But you can keep it. I'm in it for the actual evidence, and of course, if any actual evidence would have been found, we would have heard about it or read about it. So, the show is just entertainment. It's not really any sort of real discovery. So, you can keep it. Keep your $9.95, or I don't know what they're charging for Discovery Plus, to be honest. But there is some other programming that I wouldn't mind watching. It's like Disney Plus. So I just subscribed to Disney Plus. Obviously, the big hook was the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Instead of having to go out and buy each individual movie, which I do already own like half of them, but now I could just stream it and watch it. And of course, all the Star Wars stuff is on there. I know I'm not getting paid by Disney, by the House of the Mouse. But there's also a lot of other good content on there other than just the sci-fi stuff. There's some nature stuff as well. So, I get my money's worth out of that. Discovery Plus, I don't know. Not sure. I mean, I've seen a few shows that look interesting, but not enough. Gosh, I'm already paying enough with all the other services out there. So speaking of Bigfoot, some strange large tracks, just actual physical evidence, not just something screaming in the woods, turned up in a neighborhood near Glasgow, Scotland. At least according to a tweet on February 14th, Linda O'Neill shared 4 photos of what initially looked to me and looked to a lot of other people like bear tracks. And that's immediately what I thought, but the headlines were reading Bigfoot, that possibly Bigfoot was hanging out in Scotland. I don't know why. But yeah, I guess that's the one of the leading hypotheses, although I think the bear thought has taken up a lot here too. So if you're in chat, I've just loaded the picture of the tweet with 4 photographs. Now, these photographs are pretty interesting. Now, initially, I saw the one footprint which looks like a front paw. So if you're familiar with bears, maybe you're not familiar with bears. So their front and rear paws basically leave 2 different distinct tracks. So the front is a really short paws with claws, and the claws are a little bit longer than the actual paw. And the rear is almost like if somebody was walking just on the foot pads of it, like a human, where they'd be walking just on their basically tippy toes. And sometimes when they cross their tracks, it almost looks like a human footprint. And so a lot of bear tracks are many times misinterpreted, and people think that they're Bigfoot. But these tracks initially, when I saw them, I thought, wow, that looks pretty bear-like to me. But the more I looked at it, it just didn't look right. So I looked at each individual picture, and granted the size is there, but snow is snow is one of the hardest. You'd think it would be easy because snow you can see tracks pretty far away, pretty distinct, and you can see them very, very easily. But snow is very deceiving with footprints, especially wild animals, especially gauging size because snow melts, especially with a creature that steps in cold snow, warm skin, they're going to melt that snow around their foot if they're walking slow enough, and it makes the track look bigger than what it is. Wind will make the tracks look different sizes and different shapes. But however, this is taken, again, if you look closely at these pictures like I did, it's like a sidewalk. So to me, that's another telltale sign. Why would a bear be walking down a sidewalk where people were walking? Not to mention, I think people would see a bear in a residential area, and this is described as more grizzly-like than brown bear-like. Definitely, you're going to see that walking around. But again, looking at the picture, looking at that rear picture, what would be the rear foot, they don't look like that. It's not what they look like. To me, looking at that rear picture, so there's one with the lady put her foot there, and she says it's a lady size 3, which that's UK. So I think that's like size 5 something, 5.5 maybe. Here in the US, maybe size 5. It's still pretty small. So that's not that giant of a foot, I don't think. But still, I think my opinion, and it's a leading opinion by the expert slews, people who think they're smart. We'll just say it that way. The Twitter experts, Twitter spurts, call them that. They think it's just somebody with what do they call it? Costume shoes. Well, you've probably seen those. You can order those Bigfoot shoes. You know, the slippers. Well, I'm pretty sure that that's what those are too. They're probably just gimmick slippers that somebody wore outside to walk their dog. That's what I'm thinking. But again, the front claws though kind of throw me off because you can see those. But again, some of those costume shoes might have fake front claws, and that might be what we're looking at here. There are no bears in the UK at all, unless you're talking about zoos. But they're not running around. They're not loose. They have more of a cat problem than anything. I don't know when the last bear set foot in, living in the United Kingdom. Might be a few on the loose out there, like the wild cats or the alien big cats, but highly doubtful that there's any kind of bear population. Bears pretty much disappeared off of that landmass a long time ago. So not a wild bear by any stretch of the imagination. But a lot of people said badger. Some people think it's a badger, maybe a Bigfoot, a Yeti. I've also seen a lot of people commenting. I don't know why. It's just kind of weird that they actually think it's somebody that they know, like an aunt or a mother-in-law, that would leave those tracks. I don't know what kind of manicure, or I should say pedicure, that they have, but kind of weird. But yeah, not a bear, I don't think. Slippers, that's my guess. I'm going to stick with that. Anyway, let's go to UFO news. Enough of cryptid for the week. Lots of stories in the UFO arena this year, let alone the last couple of weeks. And we're going to jump. Let's just go right to this one here. Big UFO story, probably the biggest one of 2021. I think I said that a couple of weeks ago, but this one trumps. Can I say trumps on the air? I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to go with it. Biggest story of 2021 as far as UFOs are concerned. But this one didn't come from the skies. It's not a sighting. No, this one came from behind a keyboard. Yes, Anthony Bragalia, blogger of UFO explorations, has busted the government and their secrets wide open with a shocking headline that reads, quote, Pentagon admits it has UFO debris, releases test results, unquote, there it is. It's over. We caught them. We got the government to admit it. They have UFO debris. They've been testing it. There it is. It's over. We got them. End of story. We don't have to worry about this anymore, right? So, in what he calls a stunning admission by the U.S. government, he claims that they not only possess UFO debris, but they have tested and replicated a metal that is similar to that which was found at Roswell. Metal discovered at Roswell, which is purportedly from alien spacecraft. So if you've heard about this, it could supposedly remember the shape it was originally in. So if you twisted it or crushed it, it'll go right back to that original shape. That's been the rumor for many, many years. And now, supposedly, we get the government to admit it, that they've been testing this metal. Bragalia has purportedly uncovered the truth about the development of this mysterious alloy from a series of Freedom of Information requests. Yes, you just ask the government, and they tell you all their deepest, darkest secrets. I mean, it wasn't exactly like that. He kind of twisted things around and a lot of different requests, but to kind of shimmy through the details here to keep the long story short, basically saying if it sounds too good to be true, it's because it is. Yes, Bragalia has simply twisted information to suit his needs. He's been called out by a lot of individuals, as well as by the Black Vault, and even by the U.S. government for peddling misinformation. Of course, when the government reacts like that, there's a lot of people calling out the government, saying they're just trying to cover things up, or they've been caught in, misinformation or lies. Now they're just trying to peddle to cover it up. I don't think that's the case. I think if you read through everything that Bragalia has written, it really does sound like he's just reaching, and he's just taking the information he's given and making it into, molding it into his beliefs, and it doesn't snap back to the truth like this metal alloy does. So what about this mysterious alloy? It's called nitinol, Nitinol. So you can look that up. It's really a simple alloy of nickel and titanium. It's nothing that isn't found on Earth. Yeah, it does take a little bit of time and effort to get it just right. It was very difficult and expensive to reproduce. Granted, because it was discovered back in 1959, and you can say, wow, 1959, that's about a dozen years after Roswell. So it's got to be pretty close. And until basically the 1980s, it got to the point where they could manufacture it. They found a lot of things that could be used for. And currently it is used in a number of industrial applications. So the shape, memory, and elastic properties have been used in things from all the way from the hatch of a 2014 Chevy Corvette, to the autofocus actuator in many mobile phone cameras. So you might actually have this stuff in your hand right now. It's also used in the underwire on bras. That's pretty scary stuff right there. So this has already been, we've found this out, and I guess it was used on. I can't remember. The scientists were looking at this, and they found it. They were looking for something with a ballistic missile or something, but they accidentally discovered this. This exact percentage of the nickel and titanium. So it's just, you got to find it just right, but it's not anything new. So this wasn't something that, hey, we found this thing, let's melt it down, let's figure out what it is and reverse engineer it. This isn't, again, anything that would have been alien technology or alien debris, because it's stuff that we can readily find here on Earth, and we've replicated it. We created it, so we don't have to replicate it. And it'd be kind of hard to reverse engineer something like this rather than actually just engineer it on our own, which is exactly what we did. Similar properties were actually observed in alloys of gold and cadmium back in 1932, which is a decade and a half before the Roswell incident. And it was just, a matter of time until other metals were put together to get this same elastic properties that the gold and cadmium displayed back in 1932. And again, it was just wasn't practical for the longest time. The usage versus the amount of money it takes to create this stuff until the late 1980s. And again, currently it's used in a number of industrial applications because it's a lot easier to manufacture now at this point. And I don't think anything alien has anything to do with it. I know you see on popular TV shows things like Velcro and all this other stuff were supposedly made by aliens. We're not that dumb. We can create these things on our own. We don't have to reverse engineer anything. And like I said, reverse engineering is a lot harder to do than actually just engineering something. And I don't think there's, we're talking about this alloy. If the alloy is the focus of the story, yeah, I don't think this is alien anything. And granted, when you look at the documents and you look at the Freedom of Information responses, again, he's just twisting this around. Granted, there's a lot of UFO believers that are siding with Bergalia and just saying that, everybody's just making stuff up, try to cover it up. But yeah, it's too good to be true. It's too good to be true. So let's go to Florida. Yes, the famed Florida man. So one would think Floridians, and I've talked about this a lot. It seems like every fall and every spring, and probably all year round, there's sightings of rockets that are launched, and they jump to the wild conclusion that these are UFOs. Granted, I've not seen one like I've seen in some of these videos. I've never seen one in person, so I don't know what they look like. But apparently, it's pretty scary. And you would think that Floridians would be the best at spotting rockets, especially in southeast Florida. They'd see this stuff all the time. You think they would really understand all this stuff, but it seems like they're constantly confused by what they see and always talking about UFOs invading Earth. Now, granted, a lot of these launches are announced in advance, and people kind of prepare for this, and they already know about it. It's talked about on radio stations and television stations, so people are always aware of this stuff. But sometimes launches get rescheduled or delayed, and people don't pay attention to that. And that's usually when people are taken by surprise by these sightings, at least from what I've read over the years. However, when they're not announced, of course, people are going to confuse this and maybe panic a little bit. One unannounced launch off the coast of Florida last Tuesday created a bit of panic. And of course, a number of UFO videos appeared on social media. The U.S. Navy launched a Trident missile from a submarine last Tuesday in an unannounced test from a submarine that sailed out of Port Canaveral, Florida. And of course, this would have caused, if I would have been down there sailing out of Port Canaveral on a cruise ship, sounds good right about now, I too would have been a little concerned by seeing the plume of smoke. I would have known pretty much what it was. So if you're in the chat room right now, which is the great added benefit of listening to the show, the nice interactive chat room where I can post photographs and links to stories, and of course you can chat as well. Posted a picture here, and you can see a Trident missile coming out of the water. Now, this is not from the actual test last week. That's a previous test. I don't know exactly when, but years ago. But it's probably pretty similar to what occurred off the coast of Port Canaveral. But the inset, the one little picture that's in the top right-hand corner, that is still from a video taken from Port Canaveral. I'm guessing one of the hotels or maybe a residential building pretty high up. You could see a plume of smoke, and there was a bright dot, basically, of the exhaust. Only lasted a few seconds until the rocket sped away, and you really couldn't see it. Disappeared pretty quick as it got to an elevation and started shooting away from Florida. And a lot of people were taken by surprise. It's not your typical type of launch that's just coming out of the water, miles offshore. At a certain, again, it's going away from the viewer, so it's not easy to see the rocket because all you're seeing is plumes of smoke and maybe a rocket exhaust if you're lucky at the right angle. So a lot of people were confused by this, and it didn't last very long. Again, several miles off the coast, but the exhaust created an eerie sight to a lot of people in southern Florida. I don't know how far away in Florida people were seeing this, but also in the Bahamas and the Turk and Caicos Islands, people were reporting seeing this plume of smoke and this rocket. The missile flew over 5,000 miles to the northeast of Ascension Island, which is it's about 1,000 miles south of Africa and about 1,400 miles off the coast of Brazil. So it kind of flew in a long line between land masses. So it got nowhere near, any large land mass, just to see how far they could fly this thing. 5,000 miles, really not that far for a Trident missile. And again, the Navy generally announces test launches of ballistic missile tests after the launch, pretty much a few hours or maybe a day. But this one took 2 days until an official statement was put out, which also added to the confusion behind this. And, people they're more worried about a UFO sighting versus the fact that we just tested it wasn't armed, it wasn't a nuclear tip, but this is how we launch nuclear weapons. And people really worried about that. They were just worried about a UFO sighting. But this is pretty normal, pretty standard. They have to test these things every now and again to make sure that they actually work. But causes UFO sightings. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, this is a fun one. You might have heard about this. So off and on, we've talked about property, a couple houses for sale, property listings here on the show. I remember the Amityville Horror House was for sale, I think, at least once. Zach Bagans, his haunted home, was that Indiana, Illinois? Who cares? It's gone anyway. He was selling the house. We've seen some other haunted properties in the past. But what about UFO stuff? I didn't really hear too much about that. What about land near Area 51? How does that sound? Sounds pretty cool. I think a lot of people would jump on that, right? Owning property near Area 51, you just get your little chairs and sit out back and watch for the light show, right? I think that sounds pretty neat. And so it seems that a plot of land that shares space with Area 51, actually overlaps it, has been up for sale since last fall. Steve Medlin bought the property back in the late 1970s to raise cattle, not knowing that the base existed on adjacent property. At the time he bought the property, there were no buildings, no running water, or utilities on the land. It was just desert, rocks, maybe some goats. I don't know. The asking price for the property now is a cool $4.5 million. Sounds like a lot of money. There's about 80 acres. That's a lot of money for 80 acres. But the $4.5 million includes 2 newer manufactured homes, one being 4 bedrooms with 3 bathrooms and a wraparound deck. That sounds pretty nice. The other home has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and is billed to say that it would make a nice guest house. I don't know how far away they are from each other. Hopefully a couple of miles. That would be nice. Send your friends over there and give them a couple 4-wheelers. Medlin has run about 750 head of cattle on the land, and it also includes feedlot pens, a 5,600 square foot hay barn, a 1,248 square foot barn, and a 576 square foot shop. And again, the land includes a total of 80 acres. Yeah, 4.5 million. I don't know. That's awful expensive for the land. I think I estimated $56,000 per acre. But again, you get 2 houses, the barn, a couple barns. It's also, a lot of updates for the cattle. And again, this is a ranch. This isn't just to buy it to have a house. I think if somebody buys it and they're not going to run cattle, I think you're going to have a hard time getting this land. I mean, who wouldn't want all that to be on the land right next to Area 51? Doesn't sound like a bad investment. I mean, it's a lot of money, but that's the upside. The downside is that the deal also comes with the Bureau of Land Management owning not only a weather station on the property, but they also have some deeds and claims to about half the property, about 40 acres of that land. So you might lose that at any time. So if you're not running cattle, you're probably going to lose that land. In addition to the weather station, and you also have the encroaching Air Force, which seized 89,000 acres of property, public land in the mid-1980s with no explanation. They just took it. And Medlin was able to enter that property that was seized, kind of cut his property into pieces. But he was able to enter that land to tend to his cattle. But he had a call on a radio first before entering the property. Yeah, so his movements were probably watched very carefully when he was out tending his cattle, especially near the border of the land surrounding the base. The other big issue is that the property is also home to the famed black mailbox. Yes, you can own the famed black mailbox, which is actually, I think it's white again. Was white, was black, then was white, then was black. And a lot of people, and I didn't realize this at first. I just thought, Scott, I already knew it was somebody's property, and this the famed black mailbox became big, but people actually thought this was the mailbox for Area 51. And I thought to myself, well, how dumb is that? Why would they just have this random mailbox? A lot of people use that as a marker to know basically where they're at. And it's a popular meeting spot, a gathering point, and it's become part of the whole, I don't know, I guess urban legend behind Area 51 of all the strange things that happened there. So the mailbox, again, part of the property, it's Medlin's mailbox, had his name on it there for a while. So if you like to take a stroll out to get your mail, it's pretty far away, a couple mile drive to get to it. That's great. But you're also going to have to deal with potentially your mail getting shot, which he's had his bullet holes in his mail before. He's had that mailbox stolen a few times, demolished, and it's been graffiti covered since the late 1980s, when Area 51 became a big deal thanks to Bob Lazar. So if you like your mail being private, good luck with that. Also take into consideration that while the area is pretty much out in the middle of nowhere, so you're about 140 miles north of Las Vegas, you're out in the desert, you're not going to be able to just go down to the local store. It's going to be a pretty far drive to get anything. To get gas, to get food, to get milk, to get, if you're going to use Redbox, good luck. It's going to be a couple-hour drive to get to anything. It also comes with the prying eyes of the camo dudes. Don't forget those guys. And constant flow of tourists to the area. Again, that black mailbox, part of the lore and history of the area. And, obviously people trying to get a peek at the base, people trespassing. So you're always going to have that possibility of people trespassing on your land or the threat of the government seizing portions of it. So I don't know. 4.5 million, 2 houses, Area 51 in my backyard, camo dudes, people trespassing, people destroying my mailbox. I don't know. I think I'm going to have to pass on it. I'll keep my mind open, but I think I'm going to have to pass on that property. But if you're interested, I do believe it's still up for sale. I'm not sure what else you'd have to sign with the government, but I'm sure you'd have to sign some stuff for the Air Force and whatnot. I don't know why he's leaving. Don't know why he's moving. He's getting up there in age, however, so maybe it's just he's going to move to a quiet residential area in Phoenix. I don't know where he's going, but yeah, it seems like maybe he's just tired of all the stuff that goes with owning that land. So we'll go from Nevada Las Vegas area. We're going to go to Utah, not too far away. So a flurry of reports of UFOs flooded in around Salt Lake City, Utah, back on February 11th at around 6 a.m. in the morning. People had nothing better to do. There were storm clouds rolling in. However, a clearing showed a long line of bright lights in the sky that seemed to be moving in formation. People were a little concerned about this. Jennifer Campbell described what she saw. She said, quote, "Early in the morning, I saw them flying in a straight line. There was a fleet of them flying over the mountains," unquote. With the local Air Force base nearby, the thought was it could have been a squadron of F-35s or maybe some other aircraft. ABC4 called Hill Air Force Base's 388th Fighter Wing for answers. The Air Force spokesperson, sorry, I didn't mean to offend anybody, stated that they were not flying that morning, but wondered if the sighting just might be Starlink satellites. ABC4 then actually did the research, gasp, and found that according to the Starlink satellite tracking website, that the satellites would have been seen and would be bright in the sky right around the time and amazingly, the same location in the sky in which they were spotted. Mystery solved. A similar sighting occurred on February 1st in Evansville, Indiana, and now they too reached out to local armed forces bases and made speculations about aircraft or even drones. And the leading cause with that sighting is Starlink satellites, but there seems to be a little confusion with the people that are talking about this in the media about seeing the lights once they're in orbit versus when they're deployed, because they say that these can't be Starlink satellites because they're spread out, and they think that there's only supposed to be seen in a straight line. So they're seen in a straight line when they're deployed, but once they're in orbit, they form kind of a constellation, but they're all still just flying in the same direction, but they're more spread out. So what I saw in the photographs of the Evansville, Indiana incident, that to me is clearly Starlink satellites. But a lot of people also say that they were darting about in the sky, and these were visual reports. So this is people seeing these things, saying that they were moving around. But this is caused by the eyes trying to fixate on distant objects like stars or satellites. That's pretty well known to those of us that research this stuff. So I think that's just Starlink satellites. So speaking of Starlink satellites, story is a segue, as we call it in the biz. Elon Musk has obviously been in the news a lot the last few years about space stuff. And according to to me, he's kind of an enemy at a little bit. I love him. I have a love-hate relationship with Elon Musk. Of course, he doesn't even know who I am, but I love the fact of what he's doing. He's pushing the boundaries of discovery, getting us out into space, talking about going to Mars, privatizing space travel. I think is awesome. And reusable rockets, saving money, making it more affordable to get things up into space. I absolutely love that. What he did launching Tesla out into space. I'm not a big fan of Teslas, by the way, but except for the music band is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But the cars, not a big fan. But launching one into space, I thought was truly an awesome moment. And I love that kind of, uncontrolled spirit, especially when it comes to going into space. It's dangerous going to space, and you have to be calculated and in control, but also, just being daring and doing strange things is great. But on the flip side of that, these Starlink satellites, bro, you're clogging up the skies. And, we've talked about potentially launching too many things could actually trap us here on Earth. It's possible. And it almost happened last year, as we reported here on the show. So these Starlink satellites, I'm not a big fan of. I understand that they do help, poor areas get Wi-Fi, help get phone signals and Wi-Fi and all that, and maybe down the road, that's how we're going to get affordable Wi-Fi. Might be cheaper than all the other stuff that we're doing, towers and all these things. Maybe cell phone service, maybe from satellites, might be cheaper down the road. I get that. I see how technology is going in that direction, but I just don't like clogging up the sky like that. I just think there's a lot more downside to the upside of technology. And it's just we just reported these last two stories, these Starlink satellites being a constant cause for UFO sightings. People are still not used to these things, and I've only seen them once, and it wasn't really bright. It was just for about 20 seconds, and they were pretty dim. I knew what they were. I knew where they were at. It wasn't the most wonderful sighting in the world, but I could see how people would mistake them for other things. So one might wonder, what does Elon Musk think about aliens? Or what does he think about UFOs? What does he think about all these things? Well, that question was answered. And where else but on Joe Rogan's podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. It turns out that Musk basically doesn't really seem to bother himself with the thought of aliens or UFOs zipping around. So during the podcast, he said, quote, "Honestly, I think I would know if there were aliens. I mean, if they wanted us to know about them, they could just show up and walk down Main Street like, hey, I'm an alien, check me out. Here's my spaceship. I just landed in the middle of Times Square." Then we'd be like, okay, we believe you. They are very subtle, these aliens, unquote. Okay. Rogan asked Musk if he thought searching for aliens was a waste of time, and he responded with a yeah. Yeah. So he seems more focused on getting humans to Mars than worrying about UFOs or aliens. And again, he thinks that with his work with SpaceX and his eyes in the skies quite a bit, launching a lot of stuff into space, highly involved with observing the skies, observing space, that if UFOs were to exist, him and his people probably would have a little bit of information about that. And I think the kind of guy he is, I think he would say something. I think if he were to see strange things flying through the sky that he couldn't explain, I think he would really be interested in that. And I think the adventurer inside of him would be curious and want to know, and he would probably make that more than likely public. I don't see the government getting to him or saying, hey, you can't talk about that stuff, Elon. If you see something, don't say something. I really see his type of personality would want to know more about this. So the fact that he's really nonchalant about it, he doesn't really care, doesn't really think about it that often, to me tells me that he's not seeing anything, or his people haven't saw anything, which doesn't really say that all these things don't exist. Just from his vantage point, they don't. But again, he's focused on getting humans to Mars, which I think is pretty important in a way. I think pushing our ability to explore space is pretty important for humankind at the point where we're at, ready to kill each other all the time, trapped on this little tiny blue dot. So if we can push our boundaries without pushing ourselves into being broke as a planet, I think it's a smart thing to try to branch out beyond just zipping around near Earth orbit, or just in outer space between us and the moon. Granted, going to the moon I think is cool, but I think getting ourselves to Mars, that's a good step. It's a small step, and I think without somebody like him, I think I don't know. I don't think the government would want to spend money on it. So good on Elon. I'm glad for that. I still hate you for the Starlink stuff, but yeah, if he feels that there's no UFOs buzzing around And again, he would certainly know about it if there were. But we'll see. Maybe he'll change his mind if he does see something. I'm pretty sure he'll say something, and hopefully you will as well. If you see anything out there, let me know. Let the world know. Just don't put it on Instagram. Blog about it. Talk about it. And with that being said, checking my calendar, I should be wide open next week. So don't worry. We'll have a show as long as something happens in the paranormal. I'm sure something will. And I will see you next week. Well, I won't see you, but I'll hear from you. You'll hear from me, something like that. But I'll be on the air next week. Even if it's a 10-minute show, we'll do a show next week. But for now, keep your eyes in the skies, your ears in the woods, the hair standing on the back of your neck. It's probably because you're cold, because it's cold everywhere. And always keep your mind slightly ajar. Above all else, don't stop believing. For the Paranormal News Insider, this is Dr. Brian D. Parsons reporting.